Sit closer. The fire's losing its teeth, and the night out there, it's hungry. You came for a story, didn't you? Not the kind they put in travel brochures, not the sun-drenched limestone of Valletta or the blue water of the Mediterranean. No, it's trying to build a house, a stonemason, just a man looking for a foundation. His shovel didn't hit bedrock, it hit a void, a hollow breath from the lungs of the world. He broke through the roof of a secret that had been kept for 4,000 years. He didn't tell anyone at first, not because he was a thief, because he was afraid. You don't just find a hole like that and stay the same. It was a labyrinth. 3 levels of bone and red paint, carved into the soft, buttery Globigerina limestone with nothing but antlers and obsidian. The air in those chambers, it's different. It has a weight, a metallic tang like old blood and damp copper. That's the ochre. It's everywhere. They painted the walls with it. They sprinkled it over the dead like a red shroud. They hoped the color of blood would trick the soul into staying alive. Every step you take down there, you are walking on the ancestors. Literally. The floors are composed of packed earth and pulverized bone. It's an architecture of the negative, a cathedral built by taking away the earth until only the silence remained. The island of Malta is a bone, a fragment of a world that used to be underwater. For millions of years, marine creatures died and fell to the bottom of a warm sea. Their shells were crushed, compressed. They became the Globigerina limestone. It's a time capsule of marine sedimentation layered over tens of millions of years. Then, tectonic shifts raised it into the sun, soft enough to cut with a flint blade, heavy enough to hold up the world. The people who built this place, they weren't primitive. Don't let the scholars fool you. They knew the stone. They knew how it breathed. They carved 500 square meters of halls and corridors out of the earth. They didn't just dig pits. They built architecture in the negative. They mirrored the temples they built on the surface, the trilithons, the corbelled roofs, but they did it inside the rock. This rock, soft as chalk when first cut, hardens when exposed to air. It creates a permanent record of every blow from a Neolithic antler pick. 7,000 people. That's what they found in the upper level. Not neatly buried, piled, haphazard, a mountain of bone. They think the bodies were left out to rot until the flesh fell away. Then they'd gather the bones and shove them into the earth with that red dust. The smell of the earth down there is thick. It's the scent of wet minerals and the ghost of 1,000 years of decomposition. Among those bones, Sir Temi Zamet found something that didn't belong. 11 skulls, intact, but they weren't like ours. They were elongated, narrow, long-headed, he called them, dolichocephalic. The rumors started almost immediately. Serpent Priests, a sacerdotal group that worshipped a goddess of the subterranean world, bringing healing through the snake. In ancient Malta, the snake belonged to the darkness below, and these priests, they belonged to the stone. The Catholic Church and the authorities kept those skulls in the dark for decades. They disappeared from public view in 1985, only to reappear recently in an exhibition with a name that sounds like a joke, Alien Headaches? But if you look at them, really look at them, there are no sutures. The bone is smooth where it should be joined. It's as if they weren't human at all, but something grown to fit the resonance of the chambers. The middle level is where the artistry takes hold. Here the chambers are smooth, elliptical, and decorated with a precision that defies their Neolithic origin. The walls are a mirror of the temples above.
They have false bays and trilithon doorways that lead nowhere, blind entrances into the rock itself. The ceilings are corbelled, rings of stone overhanging each other to imitate the timber roofs of the surface. This creates a psychological weight. You are not standing in a building, you are standing in the absence of the world. The silence is not empty, it is a presence that presses against your eardrums, a thick, velvet quiet that feels like the stone is leaning in to listen.
Deep in the second level, there is a room. The Oracle Room. It's rectangular, small, but it has a voice. If you're a man with a deep voice, a bass, a baritone, and you hum into a specific niche, the whole structure starts to scream. The resonance is exactly 110 hertz. It's not an accident. When that frequency hits the stone, it travels through the complex like a pinball. It echoes for 7, 8, 13 seconds. It doesn't just move the air, it moves your brain. Researchers from Princeton and the universities of Trieste and Siena brought their machines, their EEGs. They found that at 110 hertz, the patterns of activity over the prefrontal cortex abruptly shift. The language center, the part that lets you lie and plan and talk, it just turns off. The activity moves to the right side, the emotional side, the part that feels empathy, the part that sees ghosts. It's a biological switch, a way to dissolve the ego and open the mind to the otherworldly. One archaeologist, Fernando Coimbra, stood in front of the red ochre paintings while a horn was played. He said he felt the sound crossing his body at high speed. It wasn't just a sound, it was a physical impact. He felt a sensation of deep, unearthly relaxation, followed by an illusion. He saw the sound reflecting from his own body onto the ancient red spirals on the walls. The air in the room begins to vibrate against your skin, a sensation of being touched by invisible hands. And what was the color of this ritual? Red ochre, hematite, bloodstone. They used it like water. Chemically, it is Fe2O3. It is stable, permanent, antiseptic. It inhibits bacterial growth. Maybe they knew that. Maybe they were trying to preserve the ancestors, to stop the rot before it could finish its work. Imagine being down there in the dark, no light but a flickering torch of animal fat. The walls are covered in red spirals that seem to dance in the shifting shadows. And then the oracle speaks. The sound doesn't come into your ears, it comes through your bones. You don't just hear the god, you feel the god passing through your chest. Now we get to the part that the government likes to forget. August 1940. National Geographic. An article by Richard Walter titled "Wanderers Awheel in Malta." He wrote about a tragedy that has become the island's most persistent ghost story. A group of schoolchildren, some say 30, and their teachers went into the labyrinth on a study tour. They went into the tunnels. They never came out. Not a hair, not a shoe. The official story says the walls caved in, but the mothers in Paola, they didn't believe it. For weeks, they stood in the streets. They put their ears to the limestone walls of their houses. They swore they could hear their children wailing, screaming, not from the entrance, but from deep under the island, as if they were wandering in a network of tunnels that reached as far as Rome.
A woman named Lois Jessup had her own encounter. She was an employee of the British Embassy. She convinced a guide to let her explore a small 3-foot passage in the 3rd level. She crawled through and emerged into a cavern overlooking a bottomless chasm. She held her candle high. She looked down. Across that pit, on a ledge 50 feet below, she saw a procession. 20 giants, humanoid but 20 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in white hair. They walked slowly, with long, deliberate strides. Then they stopped. They turned. They looked right at her. They raised their palms in her direction, not in a wave, but in a snatching motion. A violent wind began to blow through the cavern, a wind from nowhere, and it snuffed out her candle. In the pitch black, she felt something wet and slippery brush past her. She scrambled back through the tunnel, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. When she got back to the main chamber, the guide looked at her. He didn't ask if she was okay. He just gave her a knowing look. A week later, the children vanished in that same passage. When Lois returned, the guide was gone. The new one swore he'd never heard of the man. The tunnel was gone too, sealed with dynamite. The 3rd level is where the light finally dies. It is 10.6 meters below the road. There are no bones here, no red spirals, just 4 deep niches and a silence that feels like it has teeth. They call it storage, but you don't build a cathedral of sound just to keep grain. The air is damp. The temperature is a constant cold embrace. You can feel the weight of the millions of tons of limestone above you, trying to heal the wound that the stonemason opened in 1902. The Ħal Saflieni Hypogeum isn't just a site of archaeology, it's a warning. We think we're safe up here, in our houses of concrete, but the earth is honeycombed, it's hollow, and it remembers everything. Don't go looking for the chasm. The guide will tell you the tunnels are closed, but if you stand in the oracle room and the frequency is right, you'll feel it. You'll feel your language center die, and for a moment, you'll see the world through the eyes of the sleeping lady. Watch your step in Paola. The ground is thin, and the silence down there, it's been waiting a long, long time to be broken.